Welcome back to my channel, Famous and Fabulous. Johnny Depp was one of the biggest A-list Hollywood actors in the 1990s and 2000s, commanding ever-increasing salaries and power, but he only really starred in 2 projects between 2023 and 2024. So I want to discuss Depp's ascent to fame and the reasons why his career seems to have stalled before I start. This isn't a hit piece, but rather a neutral look at Depp's career and the reasons why he has kind of fallen off the radar. Born in Owensboro, Kentucky, on June 9, 1963, Christopher Depp II had a fairly normal upbringing by all accounts. His father, Christopher Depp, was a civil engineer, and his mother, Betty Sue Palmer, worked as a waitress. At the age of 15, Depp left Florida to pursue his love of music. But like most kids his age, part of this process involved simply joining garage bands as a way to cut one's teeth. Depp had a, shall we say, rocky relationship with his mother, Betty Sue Palmer, whom the actor described as a mean woman, though it's good to know that Depp continued to look after her after he became wealthy. Depp's music career really wasn't planning out, and it was around this time that he married a woman named Lori Johnny, would find himself working odd jobs just to make ends meet. However, Depp always seems to be blessed with this luck. And in his younger years, he and Lori took a trip to Los Angeles, and this would turn out to be life-changing. There he met a drinking buddy by the name of Nicolas Cage. Cage saw something special in the young Johnny and suggested that he give up music and try acting. The advice led Depp to making his acting debut in the now seminal horror classic A Nightmare on Elm Street in 1984. There he would play Glenn, the love interest to final girl Nancy. While the role wasn't very big, it did feature one of the most epic deaths of the Elm Street franchise and maybe even the decade, though luck was again on Depp's side as he very nearly didn't get the role at all. Originally it was Brat Packer, Charlie Sheen, who was cast in the role, but luckily for Depp, Sheen proved to be too expensive for the film, so casting decided to move on. Funny enough, it was Wes Craven's daughter who took one look at Depp's headshot and convinced her dad to cast him, saying he was, quote, beautiful. Heather Langenkamp, who played Nancy, talked about Depp saying that he was at times flustered and overwhelmed by acting and doing things like hitting his mark. Yet you would never know this as his on-screen charisma is just off the charts. The film was a monster hit for the new, but edgy, New Line Cinema grossing. Nearly $60 million on a $1.8 million budget, it of course spawned countless sequels, a reboot, a loosely related TV series, and made Freddy Krueger a horror icon for Depp. Though it was a stepping stone to fame after Elm Street, Depp did the Hollywood grind of doing bit parts and the odd TV movie. But again, fortune smiled on the actor, getting cast in the TV series. 21 Jump Street. Depp played Officer Tom Hansen, who was a part of an undercover police squad that focused on youth-based crime. Depp would appear in over 80 episodes over 4 seasons, but then joined for the 5th and final one later. He would go on to reprise the role, but more on that later. In 1990, Depp would star in John Waters' Cry Baby, and I think this is really notable because it would really cement the young actor as someone willing to take on projects by quirky outsiders. In fact, he kind of felt a personal kinship with these misfits. His idols were Hunter S. Thompson and Marlon Brando, with whom he developed a close relationship. Although Cry Baby is now considered a cult movie, it wasn't a box office success, but it only served to solidify Depp's status as a genuine heartthrob. Naturally, Hollywood noticed and wanted him for major Hollywood projects, but Depp wasn't particularly interested in doing them. Instead, he was busy creating this kind of mystique. The same year that Cry Baby was released, Depp also starred in Edward Scissorhands, a contemporary fable directed by Tim Burton. Scissorhands was a huge hit, earning over $80 million on a $20 million budget. But more significantly, it would be one of many times Depp and Burton would work together. By this point, Depp already had the kind of freedom that most actors would kill for, which is that he would only take on roles that he truly felt deeply connected to. I believe Depp and his PR team were incredibly smart about this because most actors find it difficult to transition from heartthrob to serious films after they've outgrown out of that type. Although Depp was not technically a teenage heartthrob, he very much had that persona, so it was seamless for the star to go from being in his 20s when he starred in Elm Street to being almost 40 by the time he would land what was likely his biggest and most iconic role, Captain Jack Sparrow, like most projects in Depp's career. It was just right place, right time. But I also feel like there's a theme throughout his success, which is simply willing to take risks after all. A horror movie from a relatively unknown West, Craven was a huge risk starring in a TV series, which at the time was considered not that great and very risky, turned out to be 21 Jump Street, which was his huge break on paper. Edward Scissorhands probably seemed a bit too far out for its lead, but he took it anyway, and it really further cemented his stardom. So when Disney announced a movie based on a theme park ride, understandably, this was met with a mixture of eye rolls, laughter, and skepticism. But despite this, and also taking a supporting role to Orlando Bloom, who was 26 at the time, whereas Depp was pushing 40, he really sunk his teeth into Captain Jack Sparrow, and it really paid off. Once again, Depp took a risk, and it was phenomenal. The film title Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of Black Pearl, was a massive hit for Disney, bringing in almost $1 billion at the box office. Much like Mike Myers in the titular Austin Powers portrayal of Jack Sparrow has been overdone. But when you watch it again, you can see why so many people find him endearing and entertaining. Sure, he's weird as hell, but it always makes sense, which is Depp's genius in the part. It's also important to note that the actor was fiercely protective of the character and even argued with the studio about how Sparrow should be written. Despite starring in a small independent French film, Happily Ever After, Depp largely phased out the brooding indie films he had done in his 20s and 30s between 2003 and 2004, marking a significant change in his output. He wouldn't return to lower-budget indies until playing a supporting part in Kevin Smith's box office failure, Tusk. And I don't mean to disparage Depp, who at the time, as I mentioned, was providing for his mother and extended family in addition to having 2 kids. Considering that, it makes sense to switch to larger roles, and he really always stayed true to his desire to explore the weirder characters. The years 2010-2017 were somewhat of a rollercoaster for Depp, with every failure like the Lone Ranger. In addition to being praised for his roles in Black Mass and Into the Woods, Depp would reportedly make a number of other films with Burton at this time. His spending was also reportedly skyrocketing, and he would reprise well-known roles like voicing Edward Scissorhands in a Family Guy episode and making a humorous cameo as Tom Hansen in the 21 Jump Street movie, as well as making cameos as himself in Jack and Jill in the TV series Life's Too Short. Unless you're a Puffin fan, which I didn't even know what that was until watching this video, you might notice that Depp hasn't really made many noteworthy projects since Crimes of Grindelwald. Up until now, the video has been a very brief overview of Depp's career with mild personal things to help give some texture to his film choices. Post-Pirates would see Depp and Marilyn Manson collaborate on some videos and balance some big tentpole films with some mid-budget fare. This video isn't meant to delve into Depp's personal life, but since it concerns his filmography, I can't help but bring up a few sensitive topics. For example, prior to Amber Heard Depp's trial, the actor was dealing with some negative publicity, but Stone writer Stephen Roderick was granted unheard-of access to Depp by actually staying with him and getting a true sense of the actor and his recent problems. Published on June 21, 2018, the article highlights Depp's allegedly almost constant drug and alcohol use and claims that, despite earning an incredible $650 million, it has nearly completely disappeared. It also describes lawsuits that have exposed claims of a massive spending addiction, totaling an astounding $2 million per month. The article also discusses a claim that Depp himself later confirmed. He now has his lines fed through an earpiece. Depp disputes this, saying it helps with his creative process rather than because he is unprepared or lazy. The Once in Demand actor also faced significant backlash from claims of abuse against his ex-wife Amber Heard, which put him in the crosshairs of the Me Too movement in Hollywood. Longtime collaborator Tim Burton even discreetly stopped hiring Depp, famously known as J.K. Rollins, a notoriously problematic figure who defended the actor by claiming that it was decided that he would still appear in the Fantastic Beasts sequel, and that even though the Rolling Stones expose and the abuse allegations were severe enough, the trial took place. So if you've been living under a rock or just need a quick refresher, previously known as Johnny C. Depp, the trial between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard IV. Amber Laura Heard was a highly publicized legal battle that unfolded in Fairfax County, Virginia, from April 11th to June 1st, 2022. This case involves serious allegations of defamation from both parties who were once a married couple. However, a lot of personal and, deeply personal things came up about both Heard and Depp in this trial. And I don't know if we've ever really gotten this level of a peek behind the curtain of a huge celebrity's life struggles. The court had ultimately awarded both parties money, but both parties also suffered a lot in terms of their creative output. Now at the time, I vividly recall that Depp's supporters were pretty quick to come to his defense while Heard was vilified pretty intensely. It should be noted that I don't have an opinion on this either way. Again, this video is more about why Depp's star is greatly on the decline as a child of the 90s, and someone who got to witness firsthand the kind of megastar power that Johnny Depp had. And hey, I don't care, as cliche as it sounds, he really is a once-in-a-generation actor who could so easily slip into a role to an enormous degree. Yet it's 2025, and it dawned on me that after the trial, the actor has pretty much went way off the radar, zooming out. It's interesting to compare this young, fresh-faced Depp morphed into this hard-lived gangster-like persona. The actor has kind of found himself stuck to Depp. Oddly enough, seems to need to take a page from his friend Nicolas Cage, who after taking pretty much any movie role he could paid off his debts, and even better is now a highly sought-after actor. But maybe Depp is fine with remaining comfortable, taking on only projects that speak to him, kind of reflecting how he did in his earlier days to a lesser degree. Whether or not Depp isn't getting the offers or is simply not interested is unknown. But I want to end this video on a positive note. I hope he gets a second chance. Because as I said, I pretty much grew up with Depp's films. And yeah, I do think that him finding a kind of kinship with oddballs speaks to me on a personal level. But I think that like everything in Depp's life, it will be right place, right time, and he will find the next movie that brings him into the next chapter of his career and life. So I hope you all enjoyed that video. As always, I linked my information sources in the description below. Please weigh in again. I'm not trying to, say Depp is an awful person, nor am I saying that he is some saint. I think as all people, we are various shades of black and white. But I want to hear what's some of your favorite Johnny Depp movies. Please share your thoughts in the comments section. And while you're here, watch these other videos. I'll see you all in the next.